and thank you for joining us. I'm Dolores Fabiano, the Executive Director of the South Niagara Chambers of Commerce. And on behalf of the Niagara Chamber Partnership, which includes Fort Erie, Grimsby, Lincoln, Niagara Falls, Niagara-on-the-Lake, Thorold, Port Colborne-Wainfleet, Welland, Pelham, and West Lincoln Chambers, always a mouthful, I'm thrilled to be able to kick off this informative series. We will be bringing you 5 thought-provoking conversations with industry leaders from 5 different sectors. These conversations will allow us to reflect on what we've all gone through and also allow us to look forward to what opportunities lie ahead. I want to thank our tech sponsor, B4 Networks, truly the tech specialists that everyone needs. We're also incredibly fortunate to have John Armstrong from Armstrong Communications, a longtime champion for our local chambers, as the moderator for this series. So without further delay, I will turn it over to you, John.
Thank you, Dolores. As Dolores said, I'm John Armstrong with Armstrong Communications. Just so everybody knows what we do strategic communications, really issues-focused and cause-focused kinds of advocacy and campaign work. So we've been operating in Niagara for going on 10 years. Know our way around. I certainly know my way around Niagara. I've been in this same business for about 25 years. So I'm delighted to have the opportunity to work with the Niagara Chamber Partnership on this on this series. We will be starting today with an update from Regional Chair Jim Bradley, who has a taped update to show us. After that, we'll be getting into our discussion. Our panelists today to deal with the subject of agriculture and the winery sector are John Nadeau from Domaine Queylus, Michelle Seaborn from Silmaril Farms, Kevin Reles from CERES Global, and Andrew Niven from Konzelmann. So we'll be discussing Niagara's road to recovery as it relates to agriculture and the winery sector, but we will be starting off with an update on the regional government from Chair Jim Bradley. We're ready to roll the tape.
Good morning. I'm pleased to be here with you today to provide an update on the status of Niagara's recovery, what the path forward may look like in the coming months. I want to start my remarks today by thanking the Niagara Chamber Partnership for hosting this event, as well as all the members who are taking time of their busy schedule to be with us today. Having a chance to share some time with local business owners, as well as sharing ideas with those from our agricultural community, is something I always look forward to. When we look back at the last 15 months, we have to start by thinking about some of our losses. At last count, 405 Niagara residents have died as a result of COVID-19. It can be easy to get lost in the cold statistics of this pandemic, but we have to remember that real people have lost their lives. It is also important to note that this pandemic has not impacted everyone equally. A recent RBC economic report noted women's participation in the workforce is now at 55%, the lowest since the 1980s. Here locally, women's participation in the workforce dropped by more than 30% compared to just 3.2% of men. This pandemic has offered us an opportunity to redesign our economy to prevent these types of severe impacts in the future. In 2020, our GDP experienced a 7.5% reduction. To put this in context, the Great Recession of 2008 resulted in a 3.1% decline. Our labor force experienced a 6.7% decline, resulting in tens of thousands of individuals being put out of work. But unlike the Great Recession, which took years to recover from, Niagara is forecasted to rebound quickly. Despite the ongoing struggle, there are signs of light at the end of Niagara's economic tunnel. For instance, investing in building construction remains strong across the region despite the pandemic. In 2020, values reached $1.6 billion compared with $1.8 billion in 2019. Or lower than 2019, last year was still historically strong, representing the second highest recorded year of investment values. This trend indicates that businesses have strong confidence in Niagara and continue investing in new projects despite the pandemic. I'm pleased to report that thus far in 2021, this trend has continued. In terms of permit values, 2020 surpassed 2019 by about $50 million, indicating that investment in building construction will continue into 2021. I'm confident there is a strong pent-up demand that will assist our economy in recovering in an expedited way. Thinking back to last summer, when restrictions were eased, we saw encouraging activity in our tourism sector, suggesting that Ontarians still see Niagara as a choice destination. When thinking about recovery, it is important to remember that any return to a new normal will ultimately require the cooperation of all three levels of government, in partnership with the private sector. While Niagara's municipalities have taken numerous steps to help our business community, we have limited tools at our disposal. Some of the supports we have implemented include the deferral of property taxes, the elimination of fees for business and patio licenses, allowing patio extensions and street closures, expediting approvals and licensing processes, bolstering numerous buy local campaigns, and implementing the Economic Rapid Response Team as a centralized hub to answer questions from businesses and help guide them to appropriate programs and resources. And as always, the Niagara region, in partnership with its 12 local municipalities, continues to advocate to the provincial and federal governments to secure additional opportunities for our local business community. The region's advocacy efforts to senior levels of government culminated in the Tourism Adaptation and Recovery Grant Program, which provided a total of over $2 million to help Niagara's tourism businesses. These grants were administered by the region's Economic Development Department, being distributed to support those most in need. The program put financial supports directly into the hands of local businesses to help them adapt and recover from the pandemic. Given the importance of the field of agriculture to our economy and our general food security, we have taken specific steps to provide assistance to our farms. For instance, our Vaccine Community Coordination Task Force ensured that temporary foreign workers were prioritized to receive their shot. We also work with farms to streamline this process, including the engagement of translators where appropriate. We fully appreciate the important role these workers play in our economy and took action to help protect them. To further advocate for our agricultural sector, Regional Council, through a motion brought forward by Councillor Witteveen, lobbied senior levels of government to continue providing support for farms dealing with the quarantine, as well as providing subsidies to deal with the costs associated with protecting the health and safety of temporary foreign workers. While thinking about our food security, we also prioritized Niagara's food processing facilities to ensure that employees were able to easily access the vaccination. Specific dates and times were designated to allow these workers to get their shots through the mass immunization program, helping to protect these individuals, our food supply, and our economy. When thinking about the pandemic's impact on property taxes, we have to consider that 92% of regional expenses are what KPMG deemed to be essential or mandatory. To this end, the region was unable to cease offering specific services during the pandemic, as the vast majority of what we do shifted to respond to COVID-19. However, I'm pleased to report that through extensive lobbying efforts, we secured financial relief from the provincial government to temper the financial impacts of the pandemic. As municipalities cannot run deficits, we would have been required to either drastically increase property taxes or dramatically reduce services to close the gap created by the virus. As part of our recovery efforts, I applaud senior levels of government for starting the conversation around affordable childcare in Canada. Ensuring that high-quality childcare is reasonably priced for parents is not only what is best for our kids, it is also a key element to ensure our economy can rebound quickly and remain protected in the future. A recent study showed that a national childcare solution would increase Canada's GDP by a minimum of $63 billion and generate over $17 billion in new tax revenues, more than enough to cover the costs of public-funded universal childcare. As chair of Niagara Region, I'm actively advocating to senior levels of government to ensure they understand the importance of such a program to our local economy. As we've already heard by now, the provincial government recently released their three-step plan to reopen Ontario. What differentiates this plan from previous efforts is that it is tied to vaccination rates and clearly spells out measurable targets as to when we can expect restrictions to be lifted. I believe knowing what we are working towards will be a powerful motivation and helps to inject some optimism into our communities. The plan also does away with regions and treats the entire province as one entity. By us all truly being in it together, it removes the incentive for those in areas with higher infection rates to travel outside of the region, potentially spreading COVID-19. On the topic of vaccines, residents should take pride in knowing that here in Niagara, we are keeping pace with the provincial average. At the time of the taping of this speech, well over half of Niagara's residents had received their first shot, and 100% of individuals living in higher risk scenarios like long-term care homes have received their second dose. This means that those most likely to suffer the most severe outcomes are the best protected. Since we now know that reopening and recovery are tied to vaccination rates, I hope this helps to motivate as many people as possible to book an appointment. The shot is now available to anyone over the age of 12, so it is my hope that we will protect as many people as possible over the coming weeks and months. The vaccine is a gateway to reopening the economy, reopening our borders, and ultimately letting all of us reconnect with friends and family. I encourage everyone to book an appointment today. When I ran for Regional Council in 2018, a global pandemic was the last thing on my mind. While no one will dispute the negative effects of the last 15 months, we've also seen some of the best our community has to offer. When I think of Niagara, I think of the immensely positive impact that a single residence, business, or nonprofit organization can have on our community. At the conclusion of my remarks, I invite you to watch a short video celebrating everything that makes Niagara special. I hope it helps us to brighten our day and remind you that we live in one of the best regions in Canada. In closing, I want to thank all of you again for spending your precious time with us today. I hope that these remarks have provided you with some insight into the recovery and where I hope we can go together as a community. As we continue to recover and rebuild, it is my intent to do so in the spirit of partnership and collaboration.
When I think about Niagara, I think about how the sum of our differences enriches our community. I think about the steadfast strength of the farmer, a farmer who realizes that prosperity in the future is tied to protecting the present. I think about the dedication of the vintner using Niagara's resources to produce global recognition in a glass. When I think about Niagara, I think about the innovation of the entrepreneur, driven with purpose, who sees what could be and hustles to make it a reality. When I think about Niagara, I think about the heart of the host, eager to entertain, their love for home and making all feel welcome, bringing people and communities closer together. When I think about Niagara, I think about the experience of the retiree who in their golden years chose Niagara as the setting to play, to connect, and to love where they live. When I think about Niagara, I think about the scholar and the infinite directions they can take, the teachers who inspire them, guide them, the hope they have for a brighter future. When I think about Niagara, I think about the selflessness of the caregiver, how their empathy and sacrifice strengthens our community, how their care rejuvenates. When I think about Niagara, I think about the vulnerability of the artist, whose work allows us to see one another more clearly, see ourselves more clearly, whose passion transcends language and culture. When I think about Niagara, I think of my neighbors, whose contributions make up a colorful and vibrant place to live, a community that cultivates equity and prosperity. When I think about Niagara, I think about the child, who has everything they need right in their own backyard and may not even know it. When I think about Niagara, I think about how Niagara was born out of a vision of singularity for a brighter future, where everyone will have a place to call home, where we will continue to invest in our communities, and where we will always take care of each other. We are resilient. We are innovative. We are Niagara.
Thank you very much, Chair Bradley, for that update. Certainly tremendous context for our discussion today, and for the inspiring video as well. It certainly got me thinking about when I think about Niagara, and I certainly encourage everybody to finish that sentence as well. I'll start by finishing it, but then I want to ask everybody to finish it. When I think about Niagara, I think about what can I do to help. So that's the approach that I like to take. So we're really delighted to be here today, and we're talking about Niagara's agriculture and winery sector on the road to recovery. Let's start with the context. We got some good context on where we are overall from Chair Bradley in his opening remarks. Let's look at it from the viewpoint of the panelists. And let's talk about where you've been in the last 14, 15 months, and what have been the biggest challenges for your organization and for your sector. Let's open it up with John Nadeau from Domaine Queylus. You could probably, for context for everybody watching today, do a really quick little intro about your organization, just so people have some additional understanding of from where you're speaking. John.
Well, Domaine Queylus is a small boutique winery, and we are the only winery in West Lincoln. So we're at the top of the escarpment on 16 Road. And I've been involved with the company now for 4 years, and it was established by a group of Quebec investors back in the mid 2000s. Our vineyard is down in Beamsville. We have another one in Jordan, and that's who we are. We just make high-end, again, boutique style wines that are sold in Quebec at the SAQ, at the LCBO, and a lot online and direct to consumer and walk-in.
So what are the biggest challenges that you've you've faced over the last 14 months from the perspective of a boutique winery? Yourself, sector.
What I mean?
Your organization, as well as what you're feeling in the sector.
Sure. Yeah, because we speak with the colleagues. We're part of many organizations, and I think like everybody else, so many things you just repeat, and then you get sort of tired after 15 months of just talking about the past. But I think the insecurity, staffing morale, safety, making sure that as a leader of a business that everyone's safe, everybody's happy. And just because they're happy one day doesn't mean they're happy tomorrow, because things happen in their own lives. Things happen at home, parents, there's a lot of suffering outside of the business that affected the morale of people inside the business, as well as your consumers and everyone. So I think that was one, is keeping everybody safe, everybody happy, and running a business and understanding that, we're not exactly sure what's going to happen tomorrow. As far as the consumer, once they came out last year, they came out, it was like a tsunami, it just sort of came out, but it's a tsunami that arrives, and we didn't have time to build our place on stilts, like it's just, you have to get ready, and we weren't ready for it. But you had to make do, and you have to, we're part of Niagara, so the welcome mat had to be out. We had to provide a service that these people are accustomed to. And I think it was one thing that we weren't expecting, maybe us a little bit more because of, the heritage of the winery, but was the amount of Quebecers that came. And I'm French speaking, and we had some French speaking people. But I think one of the complaints, you're talking about the industry, was the lack of our readiness to have the French speaking consumer coming. I've seen that as an opportunity. I've seen that, I'm doing some work with the ITHQ in Montreal, which is the Institut Touristique Hôtelier du Québec, of having them start. We are hosting some co-op programs, because I said to them, instead of sending your students to Banff and Lake Louise, how about sending them to your neighbor? And we started building something here so that we can be welcoming and ready to welcome a lot of the Quebecois consumers.
Yeah. On the other side of wine country, Andrew, you're with Konzelmann. What are your experiences over the last 15 or so months?
Yeah, thank you, John. So my name is Andrew Niven. I am the Director of Marketing here at Konzelmann. I'm also the Vice Chair of the Niagara Chamber of Commerce. So I'm really happy to be a part of the discussion. Thank you to Chair Bradley, yourself, John, and the other panel members. I think to start for us here, I think the recent challenges I think we've faced also prove to be some of our greatest opportunities going forward. We've seen wineries reinvent themselves, I think most notably with a focus on customer service and also guest engagement. We've seen wineries adapt to new forms of technology, from virtual tastings to online sales. We've seen a major shift in marketing budgets. I think that's really proven the importance of social media and online communications. We've also introduced brand new outdoor experiences. I think that's something that we'll continue to do, as I think top of mind for a lot of wineries here in Niagara is the health and safety of not only our team, but also the guests that we hope to have back very soon. So I think all of that. I think really though, we've really been grateful. I think we've managed to keep our doors open when I know many of our neighbors and other businesses here in our community have had to close. So I think if anything for us, if COVID's taught us anything, I think now more than ever, we're in this together. So I think in Niagara Lake, and I don't know about you as well, John, but I think for us, the road to recovery has already somewhat started. I think we're very excited for what's ahead. And I think we're really looking forward to welcoming guests back to Niagara Lake, because just from a human perspective, it's whatever we've gone through, we just want to see people back in our tasting rooms, and enjoying a glass of wine is something that we're so proud to produce here. So that's I think a bit of an overview.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that the notion of adaptation, because obviously everybody to survive has had to adapt. So it will be an interesting transition as the elements of adaptation are either abandoned or let go because of their special circumstance, or whether or not they will be embraced as new opportunities, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes. Michelle, you have probably a slightly different perspective. What have you been going through over the last 15 or so months? How have you adapted as a company in order to survive through this period as we await the surge that we're hopefully prepared for, John?
Well, I'm going to talk actually about two facets of what we do here, John. First of all, we're a small family farm. We have an apple orchard, and we rely very heavily actually on tourism for pick your own apples. We also have a small poultry operation as well. But the other part of what I do is I run farmers markets. And farmers markets had their own set of challenges last year, wondering whether or not we were going to be able to open and exactly how we were going to be able to open. And if I were to tell you that we spent countless hours with public health last year, I'm sure all of you would agree that it was a long road. It seemed like every other day the restrictions changed, they were added, they were subtracted. We finally opened our market in June of last year, and certainly there were some challenges. The Grimsby market, for example, sets up on Main Street, and public health said, well, unless you can restrict the number of people on Main Street in Grimsby to 50, you can't run there. Well, there was no way I was going to be able to restrict the number of people on Main Street to 50, so we moved to another location. So moving locations from what in the past had been a very familiar place to most of the customers presented its own challenge, because now they have to look somewhere else. Let's face it, when Main Street Grimsby is closed down, people know it's there. When it's suddenly in a parking lot at the other end of town, people forget. So the challenge there was trying to remind people that farmers markets do exist. Now, of course, the opportunities are great, and I understand that's going to be the next part of the conversation. But certainly when people work together for a common goal, you can make changes and you can actually be successful with this. So between our own farm products and our own farm situation and that of farmers markets, there were a lot of challenges that we first met with last year, but there were a lot of creative people that worked together and made it work.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, you come from a completely different kind of perspective. You're in the cash crop business, I think, if I'm not mistaken. You've done you've got the old Robin Hood mill up and rolling again. You've been at it for not too long, so maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you've got going on, and then what happened when the pandemic hit, and how you've been managing.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we can thank a lot of our recent success since about 2019 to a big contract that we signed with London Agricultural Commodities. So they represent about 16, maybe more elevators through southern Ontario, and they've connected us with their producer network. So we're able to bring in all of the local crops: corn, soybeans, soft red winter wheat. And there's a bunch of other crops that we are connected with as well. And I'd say, we've seen nothing but success with the entire movement, with integrating the two businesses together. And the thing that's probably the hardest through this whole thing is the engagement with the producers, the farmers. We would do 2 or 3 meetings every year where we invite the farmers in, give them a tour of the facility. They gave us an opportunity to get our salespeople, the merchants, to meet with the producers and build those relationships, which is really the most important part. It's the trust portion of our business. Being able to get those farmers together, do some draws for prizes, engage through lunch, have a couple of talks about, what the weather outlook looks like, what the crop outlook looks like, pricing indications for the season. That's really important, and that engagement, that they can trust us when they bring their grain here, and that they know that we're taking care of them. It's a piece that we're missing. It's hard to find an alternative to that engagement, and so that's really our biggest challenge right now. I really miss that. We usually do a pre-harvest February meeting where we bring everyone together, and that 2 years in a row now we haven't been able to engage on that front. So.
How many people would you bring together for those occasions?
Over 100 for sure. And so, being on the old Robin Hood facility, we don't use much of the old building where the mill used to operate and the warehouse used to operate. So we clean up a lot of that area, and we've got a 30,000 square foot warehouse where we can put all the chairs and tables and have a really good event, and then move it into a tour into the building, which everyone loves to see. Building's been here since 1940, so it's a little you know, it goes with the story. It's nice to be able to communicate that story to our supporters, to our producers that are in the area. So
You're probably in a very competitive business, which where you're probably facing some relatively strong competition from some probably very big players. So that next level of relationships got to be pretty important to you.
absolutely. And you know, I think a lot of the farmers in this area before we came along, I mean, we've been operating out of this building for about 10 years, but we were crop committed to soft red winter, and we were a different type of trading company. Now that we're really involved with all the different crops, we're, you know, reaching out to have all of them really know who we are and divert their stocks to us instead of going with the old trustworthy routes that they're used to, let's say Hamilton or, you know, whatever, Windsor or wherever they're bringing their items. You know, we need to prove to them that we have their best interest in mind, that our prices are good. So that's the best way to get them engaged, is to get them in, get them to download the app, you know, show them how to do that if that's what it takes, and give them a couple of giveaways to, you know, really solidify who we are, and so they know who we are.
Yeah, Chair Bradley, what are your thoughts? We've got some organizations here that are in the agriculture sector, but also have that consumer face, which is very much tied to tourism. So we know those interaction problems. Kevin's particular interaction problem, I think, is probably a relationship issues that happen with lots of different businesses. I certainly know mine is the same. So what are your thoughts?
Well, there's no question that when we get out of COVID-19, we're going to see a major bounce back. I'm really impressed with the agricultural community and how they've adapted to the very trying circumstances that we're facing at the present time. One of the things we have to emphasize, John, in Niagara, and it's not emphasized enough, is the significance of the agricultural community to our economy. You know, it's $1.4 billion in regional GDP. That's 9% of the GDP in the Niagara region, for instance. The gross farm receipts, $838 million. Agriculture supports, all in, because there are a lot of services to agriculture, almost 20,000 jobs. I think what people in Niagara have to understand, and people outside, is the significance of it. We can be helpful. I heard mention that part of it is the tourists coming in, and we can encourage tourists from elsewhere to come in and to visit the agricultural sector, whether it's the farms themselves, whether it's the markets that are there, or whether, for instance, in the case of wineries, it's the wineries. These are attractors. So not only is it the product that is produced, but it's also the tourism, which is a significant part of Niagara. When people come to Niagara today, they certainly look at the agricultural sector as being agri-tourism, as being exceedingly important. So when we get over COVID-19, we want to see those folks coming back, and also those of us who live locally have an opportunity to be providing assistance to our farming community in terms of our purchases that we make. I happen to hop in my car on weekends and head out to farms where the product is offered at the side of the road, for instance, or to visit the wineries and other markets and things of that nature. We have an opportunity as consumers, those of us who may reside, for instance, in an urban setting, to provide assistance. And it's not assistance in terms of welfare to the people in the farming community. It's assistance by making those purchases. We're lucky because the quality of the product is extremely high. And John, if I could just zero in on one, our agricultural products are wonderful. But think of wineries. If you thought of wineries 50 years ago, you may have purchased a Niagara wine out of loyalty. You know, as some young people might remember, the first alcoholic product they had was Old Niagara or Four Aces wine, 99 cents a bottle, worth every penny. But we've come so far where today we're amongst the very best in the world. And we can say that not out of loyalty, we can say that because independent sources have told us that our wines are top notch. Mentioning, for instance, the Francophone community coming from largely from Quebec, but from other parts of the country as well. It's interesting that, you know, there is that tourist factor, and it's very good when you have, for instance, a language services are available that people can feel welcome. I remember being in the province of Quebec at a restaurant, and at the restaurant ordering an Ontario wine. Now it's not prominent on the list, but you know, that started a conversation with the wait staff who were there. By the end of the meal, they were all going to come down to Niagara to experience what we have here. So those opportunities are all there. And we have to remember as well that our farmers in this area, that those involved in the processing and the actual farming and so on, are amongst the very best in all of Canada. So we have a unique gem here. The people who come from the GTA, you know, I don't want to put down shopping centers, but they've got all kinds of shopping centers in places like Mississauga and Brampton and so on. What they don't have is the agricultural component that we have here. So I think it's exceedingly important for all of us to recognize the important economic impact that agriculture has, and to be supportive of agriculture with senior levels of government. You know, there are times when agriculture faces a crisis. That's the times when those of us who are the consumers can advocate to the provincial and federal government for programs which will assist the farmers to make the farms viable, to keep people on the farm. And I'm really impressed and have been over the years by the agriculture factor in Niagara. And I think we have to brag about that, if you will, to those outside of our area.
John, you wanted to make a comment.
If I may, thank you. And that's great, Chair Bradley. This, you know, we have tourism down here. We have opportunity for tourism. When we talk about some of the challenges, when I polled, and I'm sure Andrew would say the same, when you started talking to a lot of people that were coming last year, this was not their first choice. They were going to Sonoma, they were going to Chianti, they were going to Portugal, they were going, and then they ended up coming here. So that's amazing. But a lot of them would say, but where do we stay? Where are we going to stay if we come back? This is a discovery we can't believe down here, but we can't find a hotel room. We can't find a place to stay. There is no room to park our RVs because we're not set up really for the overnight and those people that are making this a destination. So we had an opportunity. When I talk about the tsunami, it was a diversion. They came here not as first choice, but they discovered us as a result of coming here, and they want to come back. To answer that demand, I think we really start having to look at where are we going to keep these. So you talked about, Chair Bradley, about agri-tourism. Absolutely. Is there something to do with the farmers in some of the homes where the families have left up in this region in West Lincoln, of maybe having a program where some rooms can be converted, that there's a program that we can start this agri-tourism where we don't have large hotels but we have boutique hotels, or like they did in Italy, where there's so many rooms, but they're all hidden within the agriculture that you can't tell where they are, but there's a lot of rooms for people to stay in. And I think that if we could build that supply side, then we can go back to those people that came to see us and discovered us and have them telling their friends and making this a destination. But once they're going to stay here for a night or two, not only are they coming down to see the winery, but they're going to go to the restaurant for dinner. They're going to go to Hansberger for brunch. They're going to stay and they're going to leave money here, and they're going to come in with fresh dollars from outside of the province as well as Toronto, and they're going to stay here. So I think one of the challenges that we have discovered through this is with the amount of people coming down here, we have to have places to stay. I know Niagara on the Lake and the new hotels that have developed on Glendale, but over here, more West Lincoln and the Beamsville bench area, we're really lacking in rooms, and there should be some sort of stimulation of that opportunity.
So what do other people think? It's interesting. I remember that period when things were loosening up, sort of last summer and the fall before they tightened up. I live in beautiful Beamsville, Ontario, and I have the great fortune of being able to go for a 45-minute walk and go past 6 wineries, which is fantastic. And the Bruce Trail. And actually, if you go the other way, if I make my walk 90 minutes, I also will go past 5 fruit stands, 3 of them unmanned, and a flower stand without personnel, I should say. I mean, it's extraordinary. You know, people come and visit, and they can't believe that you can just walk up, grab a bunch of asparagus, and just put $5 into a little cash box, and drive away. But if we're moving into a period of back in those days, back when things were loosening up a little bit, it was frenetic. I mean, the amount of people that the sector could serve was significantly limited. So you couldn't get in anywhere. Everything was really busy, but there was also a sort of an electricness about it that had almost an additional level of excitement which was a little sleepier than the Niagara and the Lake area in the 20 bench area. So what are other people expecting when things start to open up? Certainly we can feel that surge coming. I think a lot of people are expecting to be traveling again. So Michelle, what do you think? Are you expecting a big surge in demand?
Well, let's take a step back and look at last year, because we weren't really sure what we were going to do with last year. So a fruit crop for us is a short season. It's from September till maybe the end of October. And in the past, most of our apples were picked through pick your own. I always thought it was better to have somebody pay me to take them rather than me pay somebody to pick them for me. It was a great opportunity. We used to get buses from Toronto, like tour buses on our little rural street. People thought it was amazing to see these tour buses come up with, 60 people that were just dying to get out and pick some apples and leave some money at my doorstep. Well, that changed last year. And last year we had some serious concerns about how we were going to get the crop off. Well, it was also around the times that things loosened a little bit. Now, of course, I think that changed again around Thanksgiving, where it tightened again, but the vast majority of our crop was during that time where you could have some outdoor activity. We were amazed at how many people showed up. They were coming from Toronto and Brampton, and they were coming from everywhere. Maybe not Quebec, but they were coming because it gave them an opportunity to get outside. It was a free activity. They paid for their apples, but there was no admission charge. We had to be really careful, but our orchard is spread out in such a way that we could have small groups in areas where we could keep social distancing, and everybody was respectful. Everybody wore masks. We were astonished. We were absolutely amazed. And at the end of the day, what it really showed was people were now looking to where is their food being produced. They were coming to farms to pick fresh fruit. And there goes that darn clock again. I'm so sorry. I should have turned it off before we started this, but it's actually quite pleasant and it's over now. I'm so sorry. But people were buying local. They were seeking local. Now, take a step now to the farmers markets. When we were able to get our market going, we made sure everything was food and farm based. So we didn't have artisans. We didn't have some of the other things that make farmers markets interesting. But once people realized where we were, they were coming because they wanted to buy local. And a lot of our farmers were really amazed at just how well they did, because people wanted to buy local. And those that weren't too sure about getting into a public realm like a farmer's market, we set up an online market. So we did the shopping for you and you just drove up. You had curbside pickup. You got your fresh fruit, fresh vegetables. That was a big challenge, and we were able to overcome it. So we took care of the needs of 30 small farms last year through this market by offering the online marketability. And for us, as far as the our own farm was concerned, we were able to offer a safe, inexpensive opportunity for people to go out. They didn't just stay here. I mean, John's business is not very far from where we're located, and there were other opportunities that they could spend it and make a day trip. Now, John brought up about the overnight business last year. I think last year there may have been people that wanted overnight visits, but I know of several bed and breakfasts that didn't make it last year because they just couldn't get people to come, and people weren't really traveling. I see that as an opportunity in the future for sure. But last year was such a messy year for so many industries. Hospitality, I think, was probably the hardest hit. And that's where I would look at your hotels and your bed and breakfast and what have you. But from a farm perspective, people sought out local. And I think that trend is happening again this year. Some of the farmers markets are opening up again, and people are glad to be able to buy food and products from people that actually grow it. And there's a relationship that forms that way. And I certainly think it's going to continue.
You were used to having busloads of people come, but you still had people come on their own. Did you find, what was it a different demographic then? I'm interested by John's point that it was a new group of people, as he described them, as in his experience is Niagara wasn't their first choice, but
Right.
was it a new demographic that were being introduced to Niagara then?
I think the people that used to come by bus actually drove. So we still had those people come, but we had more families. We certainly had more families with children. And it was a pleasure to see the change and to see again families working together. And so I think the demographics changed.
Would have been, what was it? Do you have any idea whether or not it was people from outside Niagara or whether it was people from inside Niagara, or was it a mix of both?
We did a lot of local advertising, and that brought a lot of people in from Niagara. But I'll bet 60% of them were from out of the Niagara region and further north than Toronto. So people were looking for day trips, and this is where they were coming.
What's your experience, Andrew?
John, and you make a very good point with the bus groups, and I think it's something within our industry. I think that you'll see a major shift to really start to slow down a lot of that traffic. As I guess, as ironic as that sounds, I think COVID's taught us that there's a big reliance on just customer and guest experience. So I think that's something, I think it's translated into some higher sales at the winery boutique. I think even more importantly, I think it's drawing people back to Niagara because they've had such an in-depth and pleasant experience. And I think for our branding, not only of the winery, but also for the Niagara region, I think it turns them into more or less long-term customers. So I think that's something maybe in the past we've really relied on volume. I think now it's just providing these premium experiences and really slowing down the pace. And I think to allude to something Chair Bradley had pointed out earlier also was we do compete now on a worldwide level in terms of our wine portfolio. So I think what makes us different is the stories we have to tell here in Niagara. So as I alluded to before, when we went through a lot of change and adaptation, these aren't large corporate wineries who can easily adapt and easily take on new technologies. These are very family-run wineries, and a lot of times very new to a lot of this technology, such as online sales. We shifted to virtual tasting, which is brand new. Even something as simple as curbside is just, so I think as we continue to adapt, really start to, again, get back to where we were and focus on our guest experience, I think we're excited of where we're going to go. So I think, gone are the days of the large bus groups. And I think here to stay is just these great experiences that we can offer here in Niagara.
Wow, that's fascinating, Andrew. Kevin, I know you're in a slightly different kind of business, but let's talk about. Do you anticipate any kind of bump in demand, or what kind of change in demand do you anticipate, if any, as we move out of the pandemic?
I don't anticipate too much of a bump. It's going to be all market driven, and it's really hard to tell. I get the question every year, how many vessels are you going to load? I have no idea. We just never know. it very much is. It's a market that's driven by the numbers. But I think I can answer a little bit to the excitement. You're asking about the excitement of reopening and you know what that's going to be like. And John touched on this one. John Nadeau touched on this a little bit. Our employees, giving them an outlet, something else that they can focus on. I've never had the accumulation of vacation that my employees have currently. Nobody's leaving, right? So it really emphasizes the importance of the team group at work. And so we are, we're leaning on each other pretty hard. We're our entertainment, we're our crutch, we're the outlet, and so work has been at least as healthy as can be, sort of diversion from what's going on out there. So yeah, I think it's very exciting what's going on, and I hope that we can get a little bit more, improve the numbers, and so that we can get out there a little bit more. The employees have a couple other outlets, like an apple farm, like something like that, where they can get out and do a couple of things that aren't so centric around the home and work.
Yeah, fascinating. I'll bet you there's a lot of pent up vacation time. I know I've taken nothing. It's like there's nothing to do, so there's nowhere to go. Yeah. No, that's certainly fascinating. What do you think, Chair Bradley? I'm feeling people anticipating a surge. They've been lots of adaptation. What are your thoughts?
There's pent up demand, without a doubt. We're getting that from a variety of sources, people telling us that as soon as the restrictions are lifted, that people are going to be out spending more money. They're going to want to enjoy things that they've been unable to enjoy for a long time. So if there's a bonus out of what's happened, and it's been dreadful for us, it's that people will appreciate even more the opportunities that each of these businesses and others and the agricultural sector have to offer to the population, particularly because in many cases, it's a matter of getting out of their own homes and going to an area where they can get outside. Yeah, when the winery, you want to come inside as well, naturally. And but I'm just very optimistic that once we get through this, we'll bounce back quickly. Where we can all be helpful, I think particularly senior levels of government, is in promotion and advertising and putting before the public the opportunities that are there. I mean, each one of you with your business, you do your marketing, but you would love everybody to know that opportunity, that experience is available to you. And I think people are actually going to be seeking that out. So there will be a need for those promotional and marketing programs that senior levels of government can be helpful with. But at the same time, I suspect there are people out there who will be actively looking for an opportunity to do something different and to spend some money. Hopefully many people will be back on their regular jobs at that time. And some have, not everyone nearly at all, but some have not been spending money. They've been earning some money, not spending it, because there simply weren't the opportunities to do so. So I think we can be very optimistic that we come out of COVID-19, economically, we'll be in a very good position. And each of you and your businesses will, we hope, benefit from that kind of optimism and that pent-up demand that will bring us back to where we'd all like to be at the end of what's been a very dreadful circumstance for all of us.
I know that I know one of the things that I've been thinking about as we kind of watch the economy sort of move its way through this current process is the sort of the looming concern around inflation that we're seeing a little bit of, and whether or not it's actually related to shortages which are pushing up prices, and whether or not it's going to create an idea that or just going to free up some businesses just to raise prices for the sake of raising prices. But as the economy potentially opens up again, and those elements where there are shortages of supplies, such as in wood and home renovations, as the rest of the economy opens up, maybe that will then begin to flatten out again as people look forward to getting out of their houses and deal with all of this additional demand, and hopefully that will flatten out the inflation worries. But John, I've got a question for you. You talked about really experiencing new customers that where Niagara wasn't their first choice. You also talk about some shortages in some services in order to meet that, and yet we're probably expecting even more of a surge and more of a demand. What are your thoughts on how we're actually going to deal with that surge in demand and translate it into something that can be lasting for larger to serve larger audiences? What are your thoughts?
I'm glad you're asking that, because we talk about how negative in the 15, it's going to get pretty soon to have learned from the past and take the rearview mirror and throw it out the window and just look at what's ahead of us. We have some terrific times coming here. As I said about Quebec, wine, this industry, when you go to Quebec now, they call Ontario wines local. It's creating a cultural bridge between the two provinces. I think that the opportunity is great. We have been discovered. To Andrew, what he was saying before, people came here and discovered, and said they hadn't been here in years, and they said, "Holy cow, I can't believe what you guys are doing." Well, because you haven't been down here in a long time, and now that you're spending the time, and we're spending the time with you, our customer, because we have time to do so, you're seeing what we can do. I think the services, we need to build an infrastructure of more restaurants, more rooms, and have these people. Yes, you're right, Michelle. Last year, because they weren't planning to come, they didn't plan properly. I'm sure there was a lot of people that said, "I'd love a place to stay in." There's someone saying, "I wish there was someone staying in my place." They just never connected. That's what we need to do as an industry, is bring that together. We need to start connecting hospitality with the consumer. This is just not a wine region anymore. Every successful region around the world, wine region around the world, has the three that have to work in harmony: the wine, the hospitality, and rooms. And once that all works, then you get people that come and stay, discover, share, and then they come back. And I think that everybody here on this panel and many of the people that are watching can understand how they can play a role in that and how they move that forward, because this is going to be the great times of Niagara are ahead of us. And we've learned from the past, we've gotten through it, some better than others. And we need to help those, to all of our staff. If there's a winery that has problems with crushing because, they've had some issues, we've done okay. Bring them in. Let's help each other. Let's help our neighbors. That's what agriculture is all about. And our industry needs to work together, and then we'll all benefit together. And just an old phrase, a rising tide floats all boats. We're in a rising tide. So let's all help those that are some are a little bit less float worthy than others, but let's all work together making it happen.
Thanks, John. We're just about out of time. In fact, we're pretty well out of time, but I got to go around one more quick time. Hopefully Dolores won't get mad at me. Michelle, what are you going to do to cater to your new customers and to look after the new people who've experienced who's experienced the wonders of your farm, while at the same time hopefully getting your longtime people back?
I think we're just going to continue what we're doing. We will advertise and try and promote, and it's about 30 seconds before that dang clock goes again. So I'm going to sign off with that, and I'm going to mute, and I'm going to wish all of you a great day. Thanks very much.
Andrew, what about you?
Thanks, John. Yeah, I think here at Konzelmann, and I think throughout Niagara Lake, I think we'll just be, again, focusing on the premium experiences. I think we still have to realize that we have to still throttle those open gates. I don't think we can open with a big bang. I think there'll be the crowds here to do so, but we still have to operate in a safe and effective manner. So I think it's just safely managing the two. And then eventually we're going to get there. I just think it'll be a bit of a slow road going forward, but yeah, we're just looking forward to having people back. I mean, we miss seeing people in our tasting rooms. We miss our staff. We miss everyone. So I think that's the biggest element here. So yeah, thank you again for having me, and I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks, Andrew. Kevin, what are your plans as you feel the economy start to open?
Absolutely, to reconnect with the producers and the farmers in this area. We need to get to know them better, and as soon as we're able, we want to make sure that we connect with them and have a couple update meetings, and that's really the most important thing for us at this point.
Nice. Last word, Chair Bradley.
Promote, market for people and provide support. And most of all, for all of us, to listen to people in the business community, the agricultural business community, on how we can be of assistance to them in being successful. Because if they're successful, the whole region will be successful.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's all the time we have. In fact, we're a couple of minutes past time. Sorry, Dolores. This has been a great conversation hosted by the Niagara Chamber Partnership. Next week, I think it is, we'll be focusing a little bit more directly again on the tourism sector, with the panel being Joel Noden from Harry Oaks HOCO, Paul McIntyre from Vintage Inns, Tim Jennings from the Shaw Festival, Richard Taylor from Niagara Casinos, and Susan Morin from Thorold Tourism. That's all the time we have today, and we look forward to seeing everybody next week. Thank you all to our panelists for joining us. It was a great conversation. I know I learned a lot, and Chair Bradley, thank you for joining us here today. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.